Tensions between the United States and Iran remain high as both the sides continue to hold firm positions on key issues, particularly Iran's uranium stockpile and the future of maritime security in the Strait of Hormuz. Despite the deadlock, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has suggested that there are some good signs emerging from ongoing diplomatic discussions, though he cautioned against excessive optimism and said developments over the next few days will be crucial. US President Donald Trump has also stated that Washington expects to eventually recover Iran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium, which the US believes is linked to potential weaponization, while Iran maintains that its nuclear program is strictly for peaceful purposes. Diplomatic efforts are continuing behind the scenes, with indirect negotiations reportedly taking place through intermediaries. Pakistan has emerged as a key facilitator, with Interior Minister Mohsin Naqvi holding follow-up meetings in Tehran with the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi in order to assess a US peace proposal. And all these discussions are aimed at narrowing differences and moving towards a possible framework for de-escalation, with Iran reviewing counter-proposals after receiving Washington's response through Pakistani channels. Parallel military and political consultations are also expected, including involvement from Pakistan's top military leadership as part of a broader mediation efforts. And at the same time, broader geopolitical and economic concerns are intensifying as France has warned that European governments are reluctant to release additional strategic oil reserves without clearer visibility on how long the conflict will last. French Finance Minister Roland said that the finite nature of these reserves makes a second coordinated release difficult, especially while uncertainty persists over the duration and intensity of the conflict. He also noted that even if the Strait of Hormuz were to reopen immediately, it would still take weeks for global oil supplies to stabilize. Energy markets are already reacting to the uncertainty as oil prices have risen as traders remain unconvinced about the progress of US-Iran talks, with Brent crude and US West Texas Intermediate both recording gains despite earlier weekly declines. And gold prices, meanwhile, have edged lower under pressure from a stronger US dollar, even as broader market volatility continues. The conflict is also having wider global economic repercussions. Reports indicate that India is facing pressure on employment and remittances as Gulf-based migrant workers return home and demand weakens for labor-intensive exports such as textiles, footwear, leather, goods, and glassware. This dual shock is raising concerns about unemployment and income instability among affected communities. And inside the United States, political divisions over foreign policy are also becoming more visible. And a recent poll by the International News Agency shows that a large majority of Democratic voters now oppose US military aid to Israel, and an even greater share opposes the broader US-backed military involvement in the Iran-Israel conflict. The survey highlights growing domestic debate over Washington's role in the region. Meanwhile, questions over US military resource allocated have also surfaced, with reports suggesting a temporary pause in certain arms sales to Tehran. US officials indicated that this is intended in order to ensure sufficient munitions are available for ongoing operations that is related to the Iran conflict, though Washington maintains that foreign military sales will continue when deemed appropriate. And despite the intensity of the situation, diplomatic engagement remains active, with indirect communication channels still open and mediators continuing efforts to bridge the gap between Washington and Tehran. However, officials on both the sides acknowledge that significant differences remain, particularly over nuclear enrichment levels and control of strategic maritime routes. And the coming days are expected to be critical in determining whether these talks can move towards a lasting agreement or continue in prolonged deadlock. That's all for now. Stay tuned to the Savera for more updates. Do like, comment, and subscribe to the channel.